friends. Welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 101. This is January 5th, 2024, and I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everyone had a nice Christmas holiday period in general. If you celebrate other holidays other than Christmas, there are a lot of them at the end of December, of course. I will tell you later more about my Christmas holiday, but for now, we will start with the Flosstube portion, which is cross stitch, of course, and then we'll get on to the variety show and we'll discover what that might be. So thanks again for joining me. I don't know if any of you are here brand new, but very much appreciate you stopping by. And all of you returning friends, it's great to be back. So let's talk about cross stitch and then we'll talk about what's been going on. So first of all, I will show you this chart, Bethlehem. And I realized when I showed it before that it might have been unclear that it's actually one wide chart that you could do in sections if you wanted to, but I'm doing it as one wide chart. And you can see it's sort of a panorama of Bethlehem. And obviously it culminates here in the stable with the manger and Jesus born. This is by Diane Arthurs and published by Imaginating. I'm pretty sure it's still available. I got it fairly recently. And I am doing it with DMC 3799, one strand on a blue 32 count Lugana dyed by Fox and Rabbit. I'm a member of their Patreon and I had the opportunity to buy some. They did a workshop, I think it was a Mirabilia workshop in Australia, which is where they are located. And so they had extra fabric cuts. So you see I'm starting over on the left side and it's going to be sort of a journey. This will be my Nativity Sal third weekend of the month stitch until I finish it, which I hope will be long before December 31st so I can start another one. So it's gray, it's sort of a dark charcoal gray thread on the blue fabric, and I think it's turning out well. I also worked a tiny bit on a Robson 1897. This was the project that was given to us at the Great British Sampler weekend. And you remember I've already done this pillow, which is the sort of taken from the sampler idea, commemorating the weekend, and I've gotten a little more done on the sampler. I've finished out the width of it on this red part of the border and did a little more of the green border, put a few letters in. I didn't do much on it, and but I did it. And I like the fact that it was red and green, very seasonal for December Christmas season stitching. Now I also have a new start. This was an exclusive, I believe, chart given to the participants in the Great British Sampler weekend by Jennifer, I can't remember her name, Violets and Verses is her business. And it is a band sampler, as you can see, based on a Bristol sampler, which is Martha Warboys 1878. So that's what the MW here is, Martha Warboys. That's her initials. And 1878, the year appears here. And it's an alphabet and some motifs and a border design from that sampler. It's very nice. I started it the other day, you can see. So the little banding was provided at 16 count Ada, and the thread was provided 815 DMC and the chart, and it's fun. I mean, so far this took not all that much time. I am not trying to make it double-sided, so my back, it will be tidy but not perfect. I hope it will be tidy. My back is usually reasonably tidy, and that's what it will be. Leslie is also doing this one. She went with me to that event, or maybe I should say I went with her to that event. So we both have this chart, and we thought we'd do it in January. So there's this concept of a blessing sampler in January, which I like the idea of doing a particular sampler in a particular month, especially something small and quick that you have a goal to finish it within the month. But I think the blessing sampler idea is there's some superstition wrapped up with it, that if you start and finish a sampler in January, that you'll have good luck or something all year. And I think that's kind of bogus, but I like the idea of doing a January sampler anyway. So I'll just call it a January sampler. And speaking of accomplishing something in a month, this is the holiday countdown stitch along. This is the piece by, the design by Jacob of Modern Folk Embroidery. The threads are by Roxy, Floss Co., and it's all put together as a 25-day Advent stitch, basically, from December 1st to December 25th by Evertotes. And this is the second time they've done one. I participated both times. So some comments in general. First of all, I like this design. I think it's quite pretty. And I like the color placement, and by and large, the colors are visible on the fabric. This is 18 count Ada in the color Turtle Dove, which is the color that was created for this project. And the threads are were released for the project exclusively, well, maybe not totally exclusively. Some of them might enter the regular Roxy Floss Co. line of colors. So my comments about this have to do with the fact that, so unlike last year, I feel like the stitching quantity and the colors showing up on the fabric were really good. And I like the colors chosen generally. There are no colors that I think are garish or out of place. And I think Jacob did a very nice job of putting the colors into the design in such a way that it's a balanced result. So very pretty. I do like that aspect of it. And I've decided, though, that I'm not going to do this next year. Not because of any fault in the design or the packaging or anything about that, but because I've figured out that the purpose of this is to, I mean, the mystery stitch along is one purpose, the sort of the fun of discovering what is going to happen next, but also to add 25 different threads to your collection of threads, which I don't really, that is not a goal of mine, is to have a whole bunch of threads that are not DMC or not sort of the standard ones. So I'm not going to participate again next year. It doesn't mean I won't do a December stitch. I might do a December stitch, but I don't think I'm going to do a mystery stitch along, or this one anyway. Nonetheless, I enjoyed this. There are two heavily variegated threads in it, which if you look at this vine in here, that's one of them. I can't remember the name of that, but that was around the 14th or so of the month. And then the one from the 24th was called Welch's Purple. And it is very variegated, but you can't really see. So here, these two berries are the same thread. And it worked out fine. There's actually a lot of gray in it. I don't love that idea. In fact, I find it hard to use the heavily variegated threads in block stitching because you have to really carefully manage where the variegation falls. And that is not, well, that's not why I do cross stitch anyway. I mean, it's a legitimate thing, I suppose. But if I have to manage the colors, I would rather use specific colors and stitch them in there, I think. Now the mildly variegated, I've figured out how to use, and I like that okay, that's fine. So that is all the cross stitch that I worked on, but one of the things I did is I created a chart of my cross stitch projects for 2024, and let me tell you what's on it. Now I have actually 15 things listed here that are, well, one of them is a to be decided piece, but 15 specific things, of which 11 are things I'm currently working on. Now that is way more than my sweet spot of 6 that I've talked to you about before. So why is this? Well, you may remember that in November I started some things. So that's one thing, that I did start some things recently. And then the other thing is that 2 of them are specific weekend stitches. One will be the first weekend of every month, which is the Mighty Oak sampler by Blackbird, which I'll be showing you next week because this is the first weekend in January, so I'll be pulling that out. And the other is the Nativity Sal piece, a Christmas-themed cross-stitch that I do on the 3rd weekend of every month, along with Leslie, theoretically. Mostly, I think that's worked out since we made the decision to do it. And that for this year, until I finish it, will be Bethlehem, which I just showed you. So what else is on here? Well, a few things that I have goals to finish in 2025, so I need to make some significant progress this year. Those are Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather and Tiger Stare. And I will be showing those more regularly this year because I've sort of figured out a reasonable number of stitches that will help me move ahead on those in a way that will make sense to show you. So those will be shown regularly. Sampler 193, which is the red one, I'll be showing that to you next week, I'm sure. My goal is to finish that this year, and that's only 13,700 stitches, so I feel like it's very doable. All one color, it's pretty easy stitching. Winter Rose Manor is that Brenda Gervais design. I had thought I would work on that some in December, but I didn't get around to it. But that one I intend to finish by the middle of the year, I think. I think that's very doable. I mean, the house is done. That's the biggest thing in that sampler, and the borders are pretty much done. So I think that's doable. A Robson, which I just showed you, the little green and red one, I plan to finish that one soonish. So that leaves Hannah Campbell, which is the Hands Across the Sea, as Nicola would say, Bobby Dazzler of a sampler, and Jane Thompson. Those 2 are samplers of size, some size. I plan to be significantly far along on those this year, but I don't feel the urge to finish them. And this little band sampler that I just showed you, the Bristol Sampling, I will finish in January. Now, there is one new start among this list, which I will tell you about. I can't actually show you anything about it yet because it hasn't been charted fully. But this is a sampler that my friend Leslie discovered in the Historical Society in Leroy, New York, which is where we both grew up and where our mothers grew up, incidentally. And it is by Jane Boyer, a local girl who lived there in Leroy. And we have some grand plans for this year, which I will tell you about later on. But as part of the plan, Leslie is charting that sampler fully. She's already done part of the charting, but she's going to chart the whole thing. And I believe the plan is that I'm going to stitch it, the model for it. And as I say, probably you'll see that every time I make a video because I'll need to be working right along on it. And that I will need to finish by mid-year in order for our grand plans to come into play. So this is my list. The other things on it are potential new starts that are related to, when I finish this, start this. One of them, again, I keep mentioning Harriet Salt. I have that listed as start after Jane Boyer, which is the Leslie, the Grand Plan sampler. So maybe that will happen. I may start that mid-year. That will be all one color, also red. So that'll be a very straightforward stitch. It's very large. So that's sort of where what my plans are. I didn't bring out all those charts because I'll show them to you in due time as I work on them. So that is what I wanted to talk about cross stitch. So let's think about the variety show. So what have I been up to? Well, first of all, Anne, who's visiting us, received one of these things for Christmas. And I don't know if you know what this is, but if you crank it, maybe you can recognize it. It is a yarn baller, essentially. You take a skein of yarn and a skein, you know, it looks like, I happen to have one within reach, you know, a skein, and you pull the yarn out of the skein and you wind it on that and it makes a cake. And so I have been playing with her yarn caker, yarn baller, and made cakes out of some of my yarn. The light is not great, but that's sort of a tealy variegated blue collection. This is blue and orange and a little green, a little yellow. This has some cashmere in it. This is Brilliant Pink and Kelly Green. I bought that thinking I would make something for my cousin Janie, whose hair is bright red. I think that's a great color. You may remember I bought yarn when I was visiting my aunt last year. I don't remember, it might have been April, at a store in Edmonds, Washington called Stranded by the Sea. I think that's a great name. And so this is one of those skeins, and there's some more. And so anyway, we've been having fun with that. There's a learning curve involved with it. Anne is about to start a shawl project, which includes 5 different shades of browns and gold, sort of. It's beautiful yarn. And so she made her balls of yarn using this thing, and then I've balled up or made cakes out of my skeins, many of them, not all of them, using this device. It's kind of fun. One of the things I realized is that I have a lot of yarn. In fact, what we made cakes out of is probably $250 worth of yarn. And I have some more yarn upstairs in my sewing room in the places that I keep yarn, non-sewing items. So here's the thing. If you catch wind that I have bought any yarn this year, you have to shoot me. Now, I'll make one exception. When I go out to see my aunt at some time this year, if she wants me to take her to the yarn store, and then she sees something that she wishes I would buy and make something out of, I might buy it, because it gives her so much pleasure to think that I bought something when I was with her that when I work on, I'll be thinking about the fun time we have had. So I might do that. My aunt turned 96 a couple weeks ago. She lives alone. She's fairly independent. She does have drivers, and she has somebody who comes in 2 or 3 or 4 evenings a week and fixes her a supper meal and fixes a lunch meal for the next day, and does a few, little odds and ends around the condo. But my aunt is a remarkable person. She really is. My cousin, her daughter, lives near enough to sort of keep tabs on things as well. And of course, she lives in Washington State, so I can do very little, but I'm interested in how it's all going. So anyway, that is one exception I might make to the yarn buying thing, but I'm going to be making things out of these. I do not need, 7 different scarves and hat combos, so I may sell some. I don't know, but I do enjoy knitting. We'll see. We'll see what happens. For Christmas, in addition to some other lovely gifts, but Leslie gave me, I don't have it here, the tote bag of the Hands Across the Sea. It's the Hannah Campbell, actually, is the sampler that's pictured on it. And this little deal, which is a magnetic needle and pin holder. It has a little hole in the top, and you just put your needle in there and it holds it upright so you can easily grab it, which is quite handy, actually. And a friend of mine, Michael, who knows I love Legos, gave me this, he gave it to me yesterday. I put it together this morning. cute little truck. You know, you can turn this thing and the bed empties, and you turn this and it steers. The wheels turn so you can steer. You know, you can practice your parking. So that was very fun to put together, and I can go online and find the instructions to build this little backhoe version of it. So that's kind of fun. I'll do that, I'm sure, because you know I do love Lego. It's like three-dimensional jigsaw puzzles. So the other thing I'll say is that I had really thought I would do more cross-stitch in December. And I thought, as I told you, that Cindy and I would do a galloping horse video. But the day after I made my 100th Flosstube and variety show video, on December 9th, we went to a wedding. It was fantastic, fun, you know, good meal, interesting table companions. We were so happy about the families and the daughter. We're friends with the daughter's family, and that she's married and, you know, beautiful and all those things. It was really nice. And it was December 9th, and the wedding took place outdoors, and we were wearing our shirt sleeves. I mean, this is what the beauty of North Carolina is. It was about 68 or 70 degrees at 3:30 in the afternoon, and we were sitting outdoors. Just spectacular. The meal was indoors, so that was really fun. But a couple days after that, I started to get the sniffles, so I caught a cold from somebody there. And then Anne arrived later that week, and I was, by that point, beginning to head toward, I mean, my cold was, I guess it was still just a little cold, a little sinusy thing. The following week, though, I was coughing a lot more, and I had a low-grade fever. And I developed a pain in my side, essentially, that I thought was a pulled muscle or something from coughing. Or then I thought it might be, I'm going to talk about bodily functions. I thought it might be gas, but it turned out that it didn't move along, which one would expect if that had been the problem. And long story short, I ended up going to the ER on Christmas morning, and I had my appendix out at 5 o'clock that afternoon. Yeah, that was, I mean, of course, we were planning to have people here for dinner. Anne was here from Canada, so she cooked the food that had to be cooked because it was going to spoil if it wasn't cooked. I mean, the idea was that the turkey was thawed, you have to cook it, and some other things like that. And what her texts for us to give updates. And anyway, that's what I did Christmas Day. And I spent the night in the hospital and was discharged, I guess is the word. Release sounds like prison. The next afternoon, came home, and we did our little Christmas gift exchange the 26th, Boxing Day, and then the other things have sort of trickled along. People came by with get well wishes and cookies and things like that. So that was not the way I had imagined, of course, that this Christmas holiday would go. And in some ways, I haven't really felt well since I made that last video, because the next day, well, I felt good the next day, but I started to get the cold that was the beginning of the not feeling great period. So by now, I'm feeling quite good. I felt like I had normal energy starting maybe 3 days ago. Although I can sink into a nap with very little provocation, which is not like me. I'm not a napper normally. So I've been taking a lot of naps and sleeping pretty well at night. You know, it's kind of weird. It's very weird. I had never had surgery as an adult. I had my tonsils out when I was 7, which is a very good many long years ago. I had a baby. Those were the only things that put me in the hospital. And, you know, the baby was normal birth, not C-section. So it was all pretty new and interesting experience, and, you know, not bad, all things considered. So that's what I did in December. And I didn't do, I mean, for about 10 days, I didn't do any cross stitch. I just had no, I didn't think I had the brain power to do it. And even simple things, I just didn't feel like doing. So the holiday stitch along, which theoretically was designed to be finished on Christmas Day, which is preposterous. That wouldn't have happened even if I'd felt well. I didn't finish it until I think New Year's Day I finished it. And the Bethlehem, I did just a little bit on a couple of days this past week because I began to feel like I could focus and I wanted to do it during the Christmas season. So anyway, so that was the odd Christmas experience that we had here. Now I will say that though we had to put them off, our son and daughter-in-law came December 31st, January 1st, spent the night with their dogs. We had a great time with them. There was an awful lot of leaping up to figure out what the dogs were about to do and keep them from doing things. We undecorated the tree with regard to ornaments. We took the ornaments down, but we left the tree up with the garland and the lights, and it looks very nice. It still looks nice. We put some fragile things in the other room, and we closed the blinds. That is a key, because if they can't see out the windows in the living room, that cuts down on the craziness. But they can see out the window behind me. There are no blinds on that window. They can see out the back of the house, but there's nobody back there. But there are sometimes deer back there. And they can see out the front window, which I don't mind them. I mean, it's fine for them to see out. I just don't want them leaping from chair to chair and trying to look through the windows with their paws up on the windowsills and that kind of thing. They're large dogs. I will stick a couple pictures in because it's so remarkable how gigantic they are. But they're sweet. They're very calm dogs when they're calm. But when they're not calm, they're fierce and loud and active. They're just over a year old. So that's fine. But we had a nice time. It was very good to see Scott and Natasha and to exchange Christmas presents with them and have some delicious food that Anne cooked, of course. So I think that is all that I have to talk about today. Well, actually, I will say something about my videos going forward. I've found it harder to come up with what to me might feel interesting variety show elements. So it may be that some videos going forward will have less variety show. You know, I have sort of a static collection of games, and I do like to talk about games, and I can tell stories about games, and I can talk to you about which games are good for which kinds of events and purposes. But you may have heard everything you need to hear about games from me. And I have knitting, apparently, that I'm going to be doing because I've been inspired by having my yarn all ready for me. So those are some things that the variety show part might change a little. I will talk to you about random ideas that I have and thoughts and events in our lives here. And I do plan to put out a video every Friday still. That is my goal. This coming Friday might not be one, however, because Anne is here. She'll be here into next week. And I don't want to take up the time that she's here, that now I'm feeling better, that we should be playing games, to do a lot of cross stitch. So I'm not sure what will happen next Friday. I will post some things on Instagram from time to time, and you know, you can watch my old videos if you miss me. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that. Here it is, video number 101, starting a new year. It's just still pretty mind-boggling to me that I've made 101 Flosstube videos. And thank you for watching them, because if you didn't watch them, I possibly would have lost interest in making them. So I really appreciate that. I enjoy your comments and other interaction that you choose to give. And that's about all I think I have to say. So I hope you have a great stitching week, or a couple weeks if it turns out to be that long. Hope you have some interesting projects planned for January. Perhaps you're doing a blessing sampler or a January stitch. I would love to know what it is. You can join the hashtags, which I've put in the description box. This weekend, the first weekend of each month, is Blackbird Design Weekend Stitch Along, BBD Weekend Sal. And the third weekend of the month is Nativity Sal, which is for Christmas-themed stitching year-round, the third weekend of each month. It would be fun to see your posts on Instagram. So that's all. Happy New Year. Many blessings to you, friends.